Welcome to Midnight Affairs Tales, where secrets don't sleep. Tell us where you're watching from, then buckle up. And most important, never forget to subscribe to our channel. Starts now. She said, "We can't wait for you to come home." What she meant was he couldn't wait, because the man raising his kids wasn't him. The bus hissed to a stop on the side of the cracked highway, brakes screeching like it hadn't been used in weeks. Dust kicked up under the tires and swirled in the August heat. Staff Sergeant Daniel Rios, 32, stepped down onto the asphalt, boots hitting the ground harder than he expected. He looked like a soldier straight out of a recruitment ad. Squared shoulders, tanned skin sun-hardened by 5 tours, close-cut black hair, jaw clenched like it was habit. A thin scar ran across his right cheek, barely visible unless the light hit just right. His uniform was clean but worn, the kind of where you can't fake. Patches faded. Knees creased from too many hours crouched in sand. A beat-up duffel hung off his right shoulder. Inside was everything he owned. He adjusted the strap and started walking. The neighborhood looked smaller. Trees older, sidewalks cracked. But the house at the end of the street, the one he'd been paying the mortgage on for 5 years straight, still stood tall. 2 stories, white siding, tiny porch with that swing she always said she'd fix. He could almost smell the lemon shampoo she used to steal from him. His heart pounded as he got closer. There were kids on the porch. 2 of them. A boy and a girl. Couldn't be more than 7 or 8. They were eating popsicles, arguing about something small and stupid, like kids do. But he stopped cold. That's when it hit him. The math didn't add up. His youngest would have been 4, maybe 5, if she got pregnant right before his last deployment. But this boy? He had front teeth missing and reading glasses. The girl had freckles and long legs like a 4th grader. No way. Daniel didn't move. His hands tightened on the duffel. The boy looked up and didn't recognize him. The girl glanced his way, squinted, then went back to her snack. No daddy. No running hug. Nothing. The front door creaked open. And there she was. Elena. Same soft brown hair, a little shorter now. Still had that curve in her hips he used to trace like scripture. She wore a loose white tee and old jeans, barefoot on the wood floor. She looked comfortable, like he hadn't been gone for half a decade. She smiled. Not wide, not teary, not like someone seeing their soldier after 5 years of war and waiting. Just a small, polite smile, like she'd run into him at the grocery store. "Danny," she said, arms slightly open. "You made it back." He walked up the steps, each one heavier than the last. Her perfume hit him, familiar but fainter. He dropped the duffel inside the door. "I told you I'd come back," he said. "I know." She nodded, stepping aside. "You look good." There was a silence, long, awkward, like 2 strangers trying to remember a rhythm that used to be second nature. He turned slightly, looking at the kids still outside. "Those yours?" he asked. Elena blinked. "They're family." His stomach twisted. "Ours." She looked down, then away. "Come inside. You're probably tired." He didn't move. "Elena, they're not yours." The air went dead. Daniel's chest burned. Not with anger. Not yet. It was confusion. Like someone had tilted the earth just slightly, and now nothing lined up. "I sent every check," he said quietly. "Every month. You said you were raising them right. You called them our babies." "I know. So whose are they?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked deeper into the house, expecting him to follow. He did, slowly. The living room was the same. Couch they picked together. The photo of her mom still on the wall. But there were toys everywhere. Shoes that weren't his. Drawings on the fridge with names he didn't recognize. "Uncle Ray is coming over later," the boy shouted from outside. Daniel's head snapped toward the window. "Uncle Ray? Who's Ray?" he asked, turning back. Elena hesitated. "Just someone who helps out. A friend." His jaw locked. She moved toward the kitchen, picking up a pan like they were settling in for some awkward, casual homecoming. "You want something to eat?" "I made picadillo, just like you used to love." He didn't answer. He walked to the fridge, staring at a drawing taped on it. It showed a man, a woman, and 2 kids, holding hands. The man had a beard. He'd never worn a beard in his life. There was a heart drawn above the man's head. It said, "To Ray, best dad ever." Daniel stepped back. The room tilted. "Elena," he said quietly. "What the hell is going on?" She turned, face pale now, the confidence slipping. "Don't do this tonight, Danny. You just got home." "No," he said, voice low and deadly steady. "I came home 5 years late. And apparently, so did the truth." She looked at him like she might cry. But no tears came. Just that same polite, guilty half-smile. Then, behind him, the door creaked again. A voice called in casually, low, familiar, male. "Babe? The kids want juice. You need anything?" Raymond had just walked into the house. Raymond stood in the doorway like he owned the place. Late 30s, beard thick but trimmed, wearing a mechanic's shirt half-buttoned and grease still under his nails. He had the look of a man who didn't expect to be seen because he thought he was already home. Daniel didn't move, just turned, slowly. Raymond froze when he saw him. The silence sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Elena spun around like she'd been caught shoplifting. "Ray, this is Danny. He just got in." Ray looked between them. "Danny?" Then it clicked. His jaw slackened. "Wait, you're your husband?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't nod. He just looked the man dead in the eyes. Raymond's face flushed with heat and panic. "I thought you," he started, but Elena cut in fast. "Ray, can you give us a second?" Ray didn't move. "You said he died. You said he got—" "Ray," she barked, louder now. The kids heard it and peeked in through the screen door. Ray took a shaky breath, stepped back outside, and let the door close behind him. Daniel stared at her. "You told him I was dead." Elena's hands trembled as she reached for a glass of water. "I didn't think you were coming back." "You didn't think?" he repeated, each word laced with venom. "I bled in the desert so you could pay the gas bill and raise our kids. And you didn't think." She took a sip and tried to steady her voice. "You don't know what it was like here. The bills, the nights alone, the crying. I sent every F asterisk 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 ing cent, Elena." He snapped, louder than he intended. "I didn't miss a single wire transfer. I didn't miss a letter. You missed me. On purpose." Her lip quivered. "You weren't the only one hurting." Daniel laughed once short, bitter. "You really said that?" Out loud. She wiped her eye fast like she hated being seen soft. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. It was one bad decision, then another, and then it was too late to undo it. He looked toward the window again. The kids were now in the yard, running with a football. The boy tripped, and Ray picked him up. Daniel swallowed something sharp. "I fought like hell to stay alive. I held dying men in my arms. I've seen children blown in half. And every night I told myself, just get home to her. Just get home to the life you're building. I didn't mean to hurt you." He stepped closer. "Then why do they call him Dad?" That shut her down. Her eyes dropped. "And how long has he been in my house?" Daniel added. She barely whispered. 3 years. His eyes widened. 3 years? That's 15 paychecks ago. "Danny, please." He backed away from her, his breath quick and shallow. He looked around the living room again, but it didn't feel like his anymore. His memories didn't match the furniture, the air, the energy. It was someone else's home, someone else's life. "You read any of my letters?" he asked suddenly. She froze. I saved them." He marched past her, went straight to the hall closet. Top shelf. Metal box. Opened it. They were there, stacked neatly, still sealed. His handwriting staring back at him. She hadn't opened a single one. Not one. Daniel looked back at her, the pain finally showing in his face. His voice was hoarse now. "You buried me before I ever had a chance to come home." A long pause. He turned toward the door, grabbed his duffel, slung it over his shoulder. "Where are you going?" she asked, stepping forward. "Anywhere that doesn't stink of betrayal." He yanked the door open, and there was Raymond, pretending to text on his phone, acting like he hadn't been listening. Daniel stopped in the doorway, looked him square in the eye. "You knew she was married?" Ray didn't answer. Daniel stepped closer, toe to toe. "Did you know she was married?" Ray swallowed. "She said you were gone, that you weren't coming back." "And you believed her?" I wanted to. She said she needed someone. Daniel's eyes narrowed. You should have asked who she needed him from. Then he stepped off the porch. His boots hit the dirt again, same as when he arrived. But now, something had shifted. The soldier had come home. The man? He was just getting started. Daniel didn't go far. Just a few blocks. Just far enough to breathe. He found himself sitting on a curb across from an empty church parking lot, elbows on knees, staring at nothing. The sun was brutal. Heat rose off the pavement like smoke. He hadn't said a word since walking away. Just sat there with his fists clenched around the shoulder strap of that duffel like it was the only thing keeping him from breaking something. 32 years old. 5 years gone. And somehow, he was the intruder. A car drove past. Someone honked. He didn't look up. He finally stood, stiff and sore, and walked. He didn't go to a motel. Not yet. Instead, he walked the old neighborhood in silence, letting his boots remember the cracks in the sidewalk, the bends in the street. But every corner held a ghost. The ice cream shop where he kissed her goodbye. The park where they named their future kids. The apartment they'd started in, one mattress on the floor and dreams stapled to the walls. All of it, gone. When the sun dipped low and the shadows got longer, Daniel made a choice. He went back. Not to confront, not yet. To observe. He crouched across the street from the house he paid for, behind a neighbor's broken fence. He waited. Watched. Inside the window, he saw it clearly. The boy, dark hair, taller than expected, was doing homework at the table. Glasses slipping down his nose. He looked smart. The girl was younger. Wild curls. She danced in the kitchen, headphones in, not a care in the world. They looked happy. Too happy for kids living in a lie. Raymond sat at the table too, sipping from a mug like this was his Saturday routine. Laughing. Reaching out to ruffle the boy's hair. And Elena? She was barefoot again. T-shirt tied at the waist. Moving between them all like it was just another night. As if nothing had cracked open earlier. Daniel's stomach turned. These weren't his kids. But they were in his house, eating his food, using the electricity he paid for. And calling another man dad. That word hit different now. Like a nail in the chest. He pulled out his phone. He scrolled to her name. Elena Rios. Then he scrolled lower, to the bank app he hadn't checked since his deployment. His stomach sank again. Every military deposit. Every transaction. Rent, groceries, utilities, all spin in his name. But when he tapped into the shared account, there it was. Raymond Booker, authorized user. His name had been added over 3 years ago. Without consent. He took a screenshot. Then another. He backed out, opened up his photo gallery, and scrolled way back. 5 years worth of letters, photos, messages he'd sent her during deployment. Her replies had been short. Inconsistent. Sometimes weeks apart. But back then, he'd blamed the connection. Time zones. Stress. Now he saw it for what it was. Distance by design. He paused on one picture. A selfie he'd taken in a Humvee, dirt on his face, smiling with bloodshot eyes. The caption read, 2 more months. Then on yours again. He stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering. Then he tapped forward. Sent it to a private email address only his JAG contact knew. The subject line, need to talk. Might be fraud. He didn't move for a long time after that. Back inside the house, Raymond stood up to stretch. Walked toward the hall. Daniel ducked down instinctively, heart racing, breath shallow. But Ray didn't come outside. Not yet. Daniel stood slowly, one hand still on the fence post. He wasn't shaking out of fear. It was something colder. Something deeper. The kind of stillness that comes before a storm. The part where a man stops reacting and starts planning. He watched as Elena walked the kids upstairs, kissed each of their foreheads. The boy said, "Love you, Mom." The girl mumbled something sleep-heavy. And she closed their doors. Daniel stepped back into the shadows, swallowed the lump in his throat, and turned away. He didn't belong in that house tonight. Not yet. But soon. He would take it all back. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He got a room at the only place open, a roadside motel with flickering neon and cigarette burns in the comforter. But sleep never came. He sat in the stiff chair by the window, staring at the parking lot lights like they might spell something out if he stared long enough. His phone sat face up on the table. No missed calls. No texts. Not from her. Not from anyone. He wasn't surprised. At 5:42 a.m., he stood, grabbed his duffel, and left the key on the nightstand without looking back. An hour later, he was sitting in a booth at Dina's Diner, 3 towns over. He needed distance. He needed answers. The waitress poured his coffee and didn't ask questions, just gave him a look like she knew he didn't want to talk. He appreciated that. Daniel pulled out his notebook, standard issue green military logbook, scuffed and taped at the spine, and opened to a clean page. He wrote one word at the top in block letters, Raymond. Then underneath, last name, address, job, connection, timeline. He didn't even have the guy's full name. But that wouldn't last. By 9 a.m., Daniel was standing outside the DMV. He walked in, approached the clerk at the desk, and slid his old utility bill across the counter. Hey, I'm trying to update a shared account, but the guy on the account isn't me. I think there's a paperwork issue. Can I see what ID was used? The clerk hesitated. We're not really supposed to. Daniel leaned forward, lowered his voice. He added himself without my signature. If he used fake ID or my SSN, that's a felony. I just need a name. I'll take it from there. The clerk gave him a long, tired look, then sighed. A few clicks later, she said quietly, name on the added profile, Raymond J. Booker. For 21, Sand Hollow Lane. Daniel locked it in his mind. Raymond J. Booker. Now he had the name. For 21, Sand Hollow Lane wasn't what Daniel expected. It wasn't rundown. It wasn't luxury either. It was middle-class quiet, one-story, old siding, car in the driveway with a cracked bumper sticker that read, Proud Union Worker. Daniel didn't knock right away. He stood across the street, watching. There was movement inside. The curtains shifted. A coffee mug placed on a windowsill. Then Raymond stepped into view, shirtless, towel over his shoulder, clearly just out of the shower. He looked relaxed. Daniel crossed the street like he'd done it 100 times, climbed the porch steps, and knocked. Hard. It took a few seconds. The door opened slowly. Raymond blinked when he saw him. You again? Yeah, me again. I don't think this is a good. I'm not here to fight, Daniel said, voice calm but sharp. I just want the truth. All of it. Raymond hesitated, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. Daniel walked in. The house smelled like motor oil and cheap air freshener. Tools on the counter. Kids' toys in the corner. A dog barked from a back room. Ray poured a cup of coffee but didn't offer one. I thought she was a widow, he said. Daniel nodded. I figured. She told me you died overseas. Said it was sudden. That they didn't send the body back for months. I sent flowers. I cried with her. Daniel clenched his jaw. And you didn't question anything? Raymond looked at him. Man, I loved her. She looked wrecked. She showed me your picture once. Said she wasn't ready to date again. Then a few months later, we were together. Daniel stayed quiet. Ray sipped his coffee. It got serious fast. She said she had kids to raise. I stepped up. And the money? Daniel asked. Ray hesitated. I didn't know it was your money. She said the army left her benefits. Said she saved up from before. I didn't ask. I was working. I figured she handled the rest. Daniel reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded document. Bank statement. Ray took it, scanned it. His eyes darkened. This isn't right, he muttered. No, Daniel said. It's theft. Ray's face tightened. You think I was in on this? I think you believed her. The same way I did. A long silence. Then Raymond said something that stopped Daniel cold. She told me she was pregnant once. Daniel stared. She lost it. Said she was devastated. We almost split over it. Ray looked up. You don't think? Daniel shook his head. She never said a word. Not to me. Another lie. Another buried truth. She's good at that, Daniel said bitterly. Ray ran a hand down his face. What are you going to do? Not what you'd expect, Daniel said, standing. But I'm done asking permission. Back in his truck, Daniel pulled out his phone. Opened the photos again. Letters. Pay stubs. every piece of paper trail he had. Then he opened a new note and started typing. To the JAG office. Subject: spousal fraud/military pay abuse. Underneath, he began uploading evidence. Quiet, calm, relentless. Each tap of his finger was a nail in the coffin of the lie he'd been living in. But he wasn't done yet. There was one more question. If she'd lied about Raymond, if she'd lied about the kids, what else had she buried? Because something didn't line up. Something about the timeline. The letters. The house. Daniel stared out the windshield for a long moment, then whispered to himself, "There's more." I know it. Daniel didn't drive back to his motel. He didn't eat. He went straight to the one place she'd never expect him to show up again. His house. Or at least, the one with his name still on the deed. He parked down the street, engine off, waited until the lights were out and the neighborhood was still. Midnight quiet. Then he moved fast, quiet, practiced. It was muscle memory, really. Slipping through shadows. Knowing which floorboards creaked. Knowing how to get to the garage without being seen. Because he built half of this place before he left. Hammered drywall in with his own hands. He slipped in through the side entrance. Still unlocked? Of course it was. Ray probably thought the world was full of nice people. The garage was musty. Boxes stacked to the ceiling. A treadmill under laundry. Crates labeled Christmas and Danny stuff. He dug through them like a man looking for a grave. Old uniforms. His boots. A jar of coins he left behind. But in the back corner, under a half-torn tarp, was a gray two-drawer filing cabinet. He stared at it for a second. Something about it made his stomach tighten. He slid it forward. It screeched against the concrete. The top drawer was locked. He didn't flinch. Pulled a small key from his chain, a master from the old days. Still worked. The lock clicked open, and everything changed. Inside were folders. Dozens. Thick, heavy, labeled in neat handwriting. Daniel pulled the first one. Benefits deployment. It was packed with forms. GI Bill. BH housing claims. Medical reimbursement. Bank statements. But the names didn't match. His signature had been scanned, not signed. Her writing in the margins. Approval stamps that didn't line up. He flipped faster. There were transfers made out to Booker and Associates Credit Union, an account that didn't exist when he left. Then another file, child support, modified. Daniel froze. Modified? What the hell was there to modify? He opened it. Found a forged petition, supposedly from him, signed and dated while he was in Kandahar, requesting to add Raymond Booker as emergency parental guardian in the event of injury or death. It had been approved by a notary in town. He stared at the paper. The signature wasn't just a forgery, it was sloppy. His stomach turned. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. It was organized. Intentional. Calculated. He dug deeper. The next file was labeled simply, insurance. Inside, a life insurance policy, one he didn't know existed. She'd applied for it after his second deployment. Filled it out as a military spouse, listed herself as sole beneficiary. For $100,000. And the beneficiary status had been updated 3 years ago. Right after she told Raymond he was dead. Daniel felt sick. She hadn't just moved on. She'd prepared for him to die. And if anything had gone wrong overseas, she would have cashed in and Raymond would have never known the difference. He leaned back, breath shallow. The sound of blood in his ears louder than anything else. He looked around the garage. The shadows. The quiet boxes. The life she buried out here like it didn't mean anything. All while smiling in his letters. All while cashing every dime. He pulled out his phone. Started taking photos. Dozens. Every document, every page. Evidence. This wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. Suddenly, the sound of a door upstairs. Daniel froze. A floorboard creaked. Then another. He looked at the time. 1:27 a.m. No way she should be awake. But then he heard it, a child's voice. The girl. Crying faintly. Elena's voice followed, soft and calm. Daniel slipped out of the garage like a shadow, locking the cabinet behind him. He slid around the side, ducked behind the fence, and watched the upstairs window light flicker on. She was in the kids' room. still playing mother. He should have felt rage, fire. But in that moment, he just felt emptier. Because those kids had no idea. They were innocent. Growing up in a web of lies, not knowing the man they saw as uncle had replaced the one who bled to give them a future. Daniel turned away, walked down the street, into the dark, not looking back. Not this time. The sun was just beginning to rise when Daniel stopped walking. He hadn't planned where to go. His legs just carried him, street after street, past homes still asleep, dogs barking behind fences, sprinklers hissing over quiet lawns. A neighborhood frozen in time. He ended up back at a place he hadn't seen in nearly a decade, his mother's old house. It was empty now, foreclosed years ago after she passed. Windows boarded up, paint peeling like old skin. But Daniel stepped up onto the porch like it was still sacred. He sat on the steps, pulled out his notebook again, and flipped to a clean page. He needed to see it. All of it. Lined up. Clear. Betrayals. Told Raymond he was dead, added Raymond to account. Without consent, faked his signature for child support guardian rights. Forged deployment documents, filed $400,000 life insurance policy, never opened a single letter, let his children grow up thinking another man was their father. Daniel stared at the last bullet point. His pen hovered, paused. Then under it, he wrote, letters. And that's when it hit him. The box. The sealed envelopes. How many? Dozens. Maybe more. He had poured his whole soul into those letters. From dusty tents in hellish heat, from bases under attack, from hospital rooms with his shoulders stitched shut. Some of them he wrote on painkillers. Others, by flashlight under blackout orders. And she didn't open a single one. His heart started to pound again. Not from anger. From need. He needed to know what was in them. 1 hour later, Daniel stood in the parking lot of a military buddy's auto shop. Carlos Vega, ex-sergeant turned grease monkey, the only man Daniel still trusted in this state. Carlos came out in oil streak coveralls, eyes wide. Holy sh*T, Danny. They embraced, tight and wordless. Brothers not by blood, but by war. Carlos looked him up and down. You all right, man? Daniel hesitated. You still got that key duplicator? The one you use for lockboxes? Carlos nodded slowly. Yeah. What? Daniel didn't answer. Just opened his duffel. Inside, the silver lockbox he took from the garage. Help me open it, he said. 10 minutes later, the box sat open on Carlos' workbench. Inside were over 60 letters, neatly tied with a faded ribbon, the kind you'd use for a wedding gift. Daniel stared at them like they were bones. He reached in, pulled the top one. The ink was smudged. The envelope crumpled from years of being handled, but never opened. He broke the seal. And he read, Elena, we lost Morales today. He took shrapnel in the throat before I could pull him back. I'm still shaking. I can't even explain the sound a man makes when he knows he's dying. But I keep thinking, if I get out of this, if I survive another month, I'll get back to you. To the kids. I love you so much I can't stand it. I keep your picture in my helmet. You and the baby. That's what keeps me breathing. Tell them I'll be home soon. Even if I come home broken. Even if I come home bloody. I'll crawl if I have to. Danny, his hands trembled. Carlos stood silent nearby, jaw tight. Daniel pulled another. And another. Each one bleeding more than the last. Confessions of fear. Memories of their wedding. Dreams about building a swing set. Promises to make her favorite arroz con pollo when he got back. And she never read a single one. Not one. She threw them in a box, sealed them like a time capsule, then moved on like he was already dead. Daniel let the letters fall. Carlos finally spoke. Jesus, bro. She didn't even give you a chance. Daniel nodded, eyes wet but hard. She made me a ghost before I ever died. Later that night, back in his motel, Daniel laid the letters out across the bed like a crime scene. He wasn't crying anymore. He was planning. He opened a new folder in his email labeled legal evidence and uploaded photos of every letter, including postmarks and dates. He marked the ones that included personal injury, psychological trauma, and long-term support references. Then he called the number his JAG contact gave him, left a voicemail. This is Staff Sergeant Daniel Rios. I believe I've been the victim of spousal fraud, forged documentation, and financial abuse during deployment. I have physical evidence, including sealed correspondence and falsified signatures. I am requesting immediate legal review. He hung up. He stared at the motel ceiling for a long time. And in the stillness, something cracked. He whispered the truth to the empty room. She never loved me. Not after I left. The old Daniel would have stayed quiet, filed his complaints, waited his turn, trusted the system. But that version of him died somewhere in Afghanistan, in a tent full of bleeding men, with letters in his bag that would never be read. What stood in his place now wasn't a soldier. It was something colder, sharper. He wasn't waiting for justice. He was coming for it. At 6 a.m. sharp, Daniel walked into the county records office. He looked like hell. Tired eyes, 3-day stubble, clothes that didn't fit like they used to. But his presence? Unshakable. He gave the clerk 2 names, Elena Rios, Raymond J. Booker. He requested property records, notary logs, and custodial filings for the last 5 years. An hour later, he had copies in his hand. And what he found made his stomach turn. 3 years ago, Elena had filed a motion at the family court claiming Daniel had ceased all contact and was presumed lost in combat. She even submitted a false affidavit with fabricated communication logs showing 0 letters, emails, or military paycheck deposits. That's when she modified custody rights to allow Uncle Raymond to become a full guardian, just in case anything happened to her. She'd practically erased him from the legal record while he was still alive. Daniel stared at the notary stamp, then zoomed in, and found it. The signature. His name, in cursive, misspelled. By noon, he was sitting in a JAG office 2 towns over, dropping the entire file on a desk that belonged to Major L. Morgan, a hard-eyed military legal officer with no time for small talk. Morgan scanned the first few pages. You have a case. Daniel nodded. Fraud. Identity theft. Misuse of federal funds. False custodial filings. He flipped another page. We may even be looking at attempted insurance fraud, depending on how far this went. She told people I was dead, Daniel said quietly. Morgan's eyes didn't blink. Then we make her wish you were a ghost. By the end of the week, Daniel had launched 3 simultaneous legal fronts. Family court appeal to nullify all custody modifications, establish his military records as continuous presence, and begin full investigation into forged documents. Criminal complaint against Elena Rios and any notary or third party who knowingly submitted false legal documents. Civil claim for repayment of misused military funds, including housing stipends, children's benefits, and life insurance access. But this wasn't just about courts anymore. He needed people to see her for who she really was. Daniel created a private Dropbox folder labeled, My Truth, Staff SGT. Rios. Inside, photographs of sealed letters, deployment photos, financial statements, forged documents, screenshots of Elena's texts claiming she was barely making it. Even as she decorated a new nursery for Raymond's child, he added one final file, a voice note. His own voice, calm and steady. If you're reading this, it means I'm done staying silent. My name is Staff Sergeant Daniel Rios. For 5 years, I served my country while the woman I trusted most took my money, told the world I was dead, and replaced me in my own home. This is not revenge. This is truth. And I'm not ashamed of how much I loved her. I'm ashamed of how blind I was. He didn't post it. Not yet. But it was ready. That night, Daniel went back to Carlos' auto shop. They drank whiskey out of mugs, sitting on crates, the smell of oil and burnt rubber in the air. Carlos finally broke the silence. What now? Daniel looked up. I take her down, he said. Legally. Daniel gave a slow nod. Every way that matters. Carlos exhaled, then offered him a solid clap on the back. Then let's start digging. Find the next crack. Daniel looked at him. Her mom, he said suddenly. Carlos raised an eyebrow. She told me her mom was sick. Moved in with her for a while. But that was years ago. I bet her mom knows things. You think she'll talk? I think she never liked me. but she hates liars even more. The next morning, Daniel drove to a retirement home on the edge of town. The woman who answered the front desk smiled when he gave his name. "Oh, Mrs. Camila talks about you. Said you were the good one. The real one." That gave him pause. He walked into the sunroom, and there she was. Camila Alvarez, late 60s, sharper than she looked, knitting quietly by a wide window. She looked up. "Well, look who came back from the dead." Daniel smirked. "So she told you that too?" "She told everyone." "Did you believe her?" "I raised her. I know when she's lying. I just didn't know how bad it was." Daniel sat down. "I need to know everything." Camila didn't flinch. She started changing after the second tour. Quiet. Secretive. "One day, I found a man in your house. She said you weren't coming back." I said, "How do you know that?" She said, "Because I've already moved on." Daniel stared. Camila looked him in the eye. "She used your money to buy furniture for Raymond's son. Said he was their fresh start. I left 2 weeks later." "You left your own daughter?" Camila's voice dropped. "I didn't raise her for this." Daniel walked out of that building with something more than a witness. He walked out with a mother's sworn statement. One that said, word for word, she knew he was alive. She just didn't care. Daniel didn't knock this time. He rang the doorbell once, then waited with the calm of a man who already knew how it ended. The door opened slow. Elena looked surprised. Guarded. "Danny," she said, voice uncertain. "What are you doing here?" He didn't answer. Just held up a brown paper bag. "I brought dinner." Her eyes narrowed, searching his face for signs of what this was. He smiled, politely. "Just one last dinner. For old time's sake." She hesitated, then stepped aside. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and laundry sheets, the fake kind of clean. She motioned toward the kitchen table, already set for two. She must have been planning to eat alone. Or maybe Raymond was coming over later. Didn't matter. Daniel set the bag down, pulled out 2 containers of food. Picadillo. Rice. Black beans. From her favorite Cuban spot in town, the one he used to drive across the city for. "You remembered," she said, sitting slowly. "I never forgot," he said, unfolding a napkin. They ate in silence for a minute. She took a few bites, but she was watching him too closely to really enjoy it. His calm wasn't natural. It was practiced. Something was coming. She put her fork down. "Why are you really here?" Daniel reached into his bag again and pulled out a black folder. Thick, snapped shut with a band. He laid it on the table, centered it. Her smile vanished. "What's that?" He didn't say a word, just tapped it once. She slowly opened it. Inside were photos, documents, printouts, legal letters, bank records, copies of forged signatures, screenshots of her emails, her fake affidavit, the falsified custody filing, her name on a $400,000 life insurance claim. Each one labeled, each one dated, each one undeniable. She stopped breathing halfway through. Daniel finally spoke, his voice steady. "I gave you 5 years of my life. 5 years of war. 5 years of faith. You gave me a funeral I didn't attend, children that weren't mine, and a man in my house who wore my shirts and drank from my mugs." Elena's mouth opened, closed. No words came. "You didn't just move on. You erased me." She pushed the folder away. I didn't know how to fix it. It just kept going and you could have told the truth. I thought you were dead." "No." He snapped, voice rising just enough to sting. "You hoped I was dead." She flinched. "You filed for benefits, changed custody rights, added Raymond to my account, and filled out a death benefit insurance policy while I was still sending you letters from a combat zone." Tears welled up in her eyes, but Daniel didn't soften. "I read every one of those letters last week. You didn't open a single one. I was scared," she whispered. "You were changing. I didn't know if you'd still be you." Daniel leaned forward. "I was changing because I was watching men die around me, because I was surviving for the thought of coming home to you." She covered her face. He let the silence stretch. Then, gently, he slid one last item across the table. A single envelope. Unopened. Yellowed. Crumpled. "Elena. This was the one I wrote after I got shot. Shoulder. Almost bled out. I was laying there thinking I'd never see home again. And the only thing that got me through was thinking about you, holding this letter in your hands. She didn't take it. Daniel stood. I want you to open it now. She shook her head. Open it, he repeated, flat. She reached forward with shaking hands, tore it open, pulled the folded paper out, and she read. Her lips moved silently. Her hands started to tremble. It was short, raw, written in all caps, the ink smeared from blood or rain or both. Elena, if I die out here, just know I did it believing you were worth it. Tell the kids I'm sorry I won't be there. Tell them their dad loved them so much he walked through hell to get home. Daniel, she dropped the letter like it was burning her fingers. Tears spilled down her cheeks now. But Daniel didn't comfort her. He picked up the black folder, slid it back into his bag. I've already filed with JAG. Civil court's next. You'll be getting served soon. I suggest you tell your lawyer the truth before this hits military support forums. There's thousands of people just like me who'd love to know what you did. Elena sobbed quietly, shoulders shaking. Daniel stepped toward the door. He paused once, hand on the handle, then looked back. You once told me I was the strongest man you'd ever known. He nodded slightly. You were right. And with that, he left. The sky was slate gray the next morning, low clouds, wind coming in heavy. Daniel sat in his truck outside the courthouse, engine off, envelope in hand. Unmarked. Clinical. Heavy. He'd paid for the DNA test himself. 2 cheek swabs. One from him. One quietly taken from a hairbrush the boy left on the living room table that night he watched from the shadows. He hadn't told anyone. Not Carlos. Not his lawyer. Not even the JAG officer. Because deep down, Daniel wanted to believe one thing hadn't been stolen from him. That maybe, the boy was his. That at least part of what he'd fought for had come home in one piece. He opened the envelope with the slow dread of a man peeling open the final wound. 2 sheets inside. His name. The boy's name. Probability of paternity. 0%. His hand didn't shake. He pulled the second sheet. The girl's name. Probability of paternity. 0%. He folded both papers. Set them on the dash. Stared at nothing. No anger. Not yet. Just this crushing, hollow quiet. Like a war zone after the last blast. Nothing left to scream about. He thought about that night when he first saw them, laughing on the porch, sticky popsicle fingers, fighting over nothing. They were happy. They were never his. And he was never theirs. 2 hours later, Daniel walked into his attorney's office. He handed over the results wordlessly. The attorney, a sharp woman in her 40s named Miss Reyes, scanned the first page, then the second. This changes everything, she said. Daniel didn't speak. You're no longer legally obligated for support. We'll file for nullification of paternity, motion for fraud and misrepresentation, and a federal investigation into benefits claimed under false pretenses. Daniel blinked slowly. How long? Could take weeks. But once it hits the system, it'll move fast. And Raymond? She paused. He'll be subpoenaed. Might be called in for questioning. Especially if she filed documents in his name. Daniel nodded once. Do you want custody of anything? She asked. Furniture? Vehicle? Bank assets? He stood. I don't want a damn thing. That evening, Daniel drove back to the old neighborhood, not to the house, but just close enough to see the porch light. Raymond was there. He sat on the steps, elbows on his knees, phone in hand. Daniel parked down the block. Walked slowly, openly. Ray looked up as he approached. No anger. No words yet. Just a quiet understanding that something had shifted. Daniel sat beside him without asking. After a long silence, he said, They're not mine. Ray nodded. I figured. She told you anything? Ray sighed. She tried. Said it was complicated. Said you left her broken. Daniel looked straight ahead. I left her everything. Another pause. Then Raymond asked the only question left. What happens now? Daniel took a deep breath. I take my name back. My dignity. My life. She can keep the house. Keep the lies. But I won't carry them anymore. Ray tapped his phone nervously. You think the kids will ever know? Daniel stood. Looked at the front door. If they don't hear it from her, they'll hear it in court. He didn't look back this time. As he drove away, the storm finally broke overhead. Rain pounded the windshield, fast and hard. But for the first time in years, Daniel let it hit him. He rolled down the window. Let the cold in. Let the world in. He was done carrying ghosts. Raymond didn't sleep that night. He sat in the kitchen long after Elena had gone upstairs. The kids were quiet, cartoons left running on low volume in the other room. An uneaten plate of food sat in front of him, untouched. Just beans and rice going cold. He stared at the kitchen clock. Tick, tick, tick. He hated how loud time felt all of a sudden. Around midnight, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Sand Hollow Body Shop. No lies. Dr. He didn't respond. Didn't have to. He knew exactly who it was. The next morning, Raymond showed up early. He paced the shop before it opened, rubbing his hands together like it might calm his nerves. But his chest was tight. Guilt had a way of settling into the ribcage and refusing to leave. By 8:58, Daniel's truck rolled up. Raymond straightened. Daniel stepped out, not in uniform, not dressed up, just jeans and a black t-shirt. He looked leaner now, not just from war, from everything he'd shed in the last 2 weeks. He walked like a man with nothing left to prove. No handshake. No pleasantries. He nodded toward the back of the shop. We talked back there. Raymond followed. They walked past the tools, past the hydraulic lift, past the racks of tires stacked like rubber tombstones. Into the open bay. Quiet. Clean. No cameras. Daniel turned, faced him fully. I need you to hear something. Without interrupting. Raymond nodded. Daniel took a breath, then began. I don't hate you, Ray. Not yet. I know what she told you. I know how she said I died. And I get it. Grief brings people together. But I want you to understand exactly what you walked into. Raymond kept his eyes locked. I was 27 when I deployed. Married less than a year. I held her in my arms before I boarded that flight, and I swore I'd come back whole, even if it meant coming back on a stretcher. Daniel's voice stayed low, steady, like a confession at the edge of a grave. For 5 years, I sent every check I could, lived off the bare minimum. While you two were putting together IKEA furniture and naming fake uncles, I was sleeping next to men who didn't wake up. I was pulling triggers. I was writing letters she never read. Raymond's jaw tightened. Daniel stepped closer. No threat, just pressure. I read them last week. Every letter I sent. Sealed. Untouched. Tied with ribbon like some sick souvenir. You know what that does to a man. You know what it means to believe someone is praying for you, when really they've already moved on. Raymond lowered his eyes. She told me I was all the kids knew, he muttered. Daniel didn't flinch. They never knew me. And I'm not taking them away. That's not what this is. Raymond looked up, surprised. I'm not filing for custody, Daniel said. Not asking for visitation. They're not mine. A long pause. Raymond said nothing. But you better understand something right now, Daniel added, voice sharpening. I may not want the house, the money, or the kids. But I'm not letting my name rot in her lies. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, pressed it into Raymond's chest. Ray opened it. Read it. His face paled. Court subpoena. Witness notification. Request for formal deposition. She filed fraudulent documents using my name, my pay, and your access, Daniel said. You were either a pawn or an accomplice. That hearing will figure out which. I didn't know, Raymond said quickly. I swear to God, I didn't know. I never saw that paperwork. I thought it was legit. I believe you, Daniel said, surprising him. But that's not enough. Raymond looked confused. Daniel stepped back, took a breath. You want to do right by those kids? Raymond nodded instantly. Then stop protecting the lie. Don't shield her. Don't twist the story for their sake. They deserve to know who built that house, who paid for their beds, who died inside while someone else tucked them in. Raymond's face went stiff. And when the time comes, Daniel added, voice quieter now, you tell them that the man they never met still loved them anyway. Raymond blinked, eyes glossing. I didn't mean to take your place. Daniel shook his head. You didn't. She gave it away. A long silence stretched between them. Then Daniel turned. started walking back toward the front. He was almost gone when Raymond spoke again. "She's scared." Daniel stopped. Raymond continued. "She knows this is going to bury her. She cries when she thinks no one's watching. I think she thought you were going to die out there. And when you didn't, she didn't know how to face you." Daniel stared ahead. "I bled out on a dirt floor and kept breathing for her," he said. "Now she can cry for herself." He left without another word. Back in his truck, the dashboard clock blinked 9:47 a.m. The wind was picking up again. But Daniel felt clear. He had nothing left to fear. No secrets left to carry. Raymond would face the court. Elena would face the truth. And Daniel? He was no longer chasing closure. He was building something new. The letter arrived on a Wednesday. Thick envelope. Legal seal. Superior Court of Riverside County printed clean across the top. Elena opened it in the kitchen, hands still damp from doing dishes. At first, she didn't understand. Then she read further. Allegations of spousal fraud. Misuse of federal benefits. Forgery of military-related documents. Civil suit for damages. She dropped the envelope. Her knees hit the tile 2 seconds later. 3 days later, her world officially broke. It started with a knock on the door. Raymond answered it, thinking it was a delivery. Instead, a process server handed him his own set of documents, subpoena to appear in court as a financial witness. Behind the man, 2 more officials stepped forward with clipboards. A state auditor. A representative from the Department of Defense Financial Recovery Unit. "Miss Rios," one of them asked. Elena stood frozen at the top of the stairs. They stepped inside. The audit began immediately. By noon, her accounts were frozen. The joint military-linked account Daniel had funded shut down. Her phone buzzed with a new notification. Access to survivor benefits suspended. Pending review an hour later, she received another blow. Her attorney dropped her. Cited conflict of interest and material misrepresentation. Raymond stood at the counter, arms folded, silent through all of it. He didn't speak when the agents asked questions. Didn't flinch when they started photographing documents. Didn't look at her when she pleaded with her eyes. Only when the investigators stepped out did he finally ask, flat and cold, "You ever love me? Or was I just the next guy dumb enough to buy your story?" Elena tried to answer, but her voice caught. He didn't wait. He walked out the door. Didn't even pack a bag. That night, Elena sat in the hallway with her back against the wall. The house was too quiet. The kids had gone to stay with her cousin for the weekend, mandatory, court-advised separation while the investigation was underway. They didn't understand. They thought it was just a sleepover. Elena held one of their drawings in her lap. A picture of her. The kids. Raymond. No Daniel. Not even a shadow of him. She wanted to scream. But even her guilt was tired now. The next morning, it got worse. Daniel's story hit the internet. Not a rant. Not a revenge post. Just facts. A clean Dropbox folder. A series of photos. A short voiceover from Daniel himself, posted by an anonymous account called One Letter Unread. Within hours, it was viral in the military spouse community. Within a day, it was shared on veteran support forums, survivor pages, fraud watch groups. Titled simply, "She told him he had a family, then used his money to raise another man's kids." It wasn't edited for drama. It didn't need to be. The letters spoke for themselves. The forged documents. The unopened envelopes. The legal filings dated while Daniel was deployed. Over 900 comments in 24 hours. The top one read, "As a military wife, I've waded through deployments too. What she did is disgusting." Another, "This is beyond betrayal. This is federal crime territory." By the end of the week, Elena was getting calls from journalists. She ignored them all. But her job didn't. Her employer placed her on unpaid leave pending the outcome of legal matters affecting trust and eligibility. Her email access was shut down. On Saturday, her front yard was tagged. Just one word, spray painted across the sidewalk. Thief. The neighbors didn't make eye contact. The mail carrier stopped knocking. Raymond never came back. She called him once, straight to voicemail. Left a message she couldn't remember half of. In court, things moved fast. Daniel didn't even show up for the early hearings. His lawyer didn't need him there. The evidence was airtight. DNA test? Conclusive. Forged signature on the custody filing? Verified by a forensic handwriting analyst. Her mother's affidavit? Submitted, notarized, brutally honest. Daniel's deployment records and pay stubs? Flawless. The court suspended all military-linked financial benefits from her immediately. Ordered repayment of $143,000 in misused funds. Opened a criminal investigation into the life insurance policy filed under false pretenses. But the final blow came at the end of the hearing when the judge read the last motion out loud. Filed by Daniel Rios. Motion to nullify legal paternity and all parental responsibility, effective retroactively. It was granted. Elena lost everything in a matter of minutes. That night, she sat at the kitchen table in the dark. No lights, no sound, just the wind pressing against the windows like it was trying to get in and finish what the law had started. She stared at her hands, the same ones that had opened his letters and thrown them away. The same ones that forged his name. The same ones that once held him. She whispered his name once. Softly, like maybe he could hear it across whatever invisible wall now separated them. But he couldn't, because Daniel Rios didn't live here anymore. Miles away, Daniel stood by a small grave marked Morales, one of the men who never made it back. He knelt, left a letter at the base of the stone, folded once, tied with ribbon, just like the ones that never got read. Brother, I made it back. Barely. But I'm done bleeding for people who forget us. It's time I started living for the ones who never had a chance to. He stood, turned to leave. Behind him, the sun started to rise, slow, golden warm. The road curved through green hills, lined with trees that swayed gently in the breeze. The sun was high, not blistering like before, but warm, easy. It felt like the kind of morning you only get when time has passed and the fire's gone out of everything that used to burn. Daniel Rios sat behind the wheel of a black pickup truck that looked just as steady as he did. Clean windshield. No dents. A new life, inside and out. He wore a plain navy button-up, sleeves rolled, jeans that fit, a watch that actually told time. His beard was short now, salt showing near the chin. He looked older than 37, but stronger, too. Not in muscle. In silence. He pulled into the long gravel driveway of a quiet ranch house surrounded by open space. Wide porch, wooden beams, the kind of place with peace built into the structure. As he stepped out, a little voice rang out from the swing set in the backyard. Daniel. He smiled. Slow, real. A small boy ran across the grass, maybe 4 years old, barefoot, his shirt riding up as he ran. Daniel crouched low. Hey, champ, watch those ninja feet. You're gonna fly off the planet. The boy launched himself into his arms, giggling. Mom said you brought pancakes. I brought better than pancakes, Daniel said. I brought real maple syrup this time. The boy gasped like it was gold. From the back door, a woman stepped out holding 2 mugs. She was tall, mid-30s, auburn curls pulled into a loose bun, wearing a soft green shirt and old jeans cuffed at the ankle. Her name was Leah, and the look in her eyes when she saw Daniel wasn't complicated. It was clear. She handed him a mug. You're late. He's been asking about syrup for an hour. I like keeping the suspense high, Daniel said, standing. She looked him over. You okay? He nodded. Yeah, I'm good. They walked into the house together. The kitchen was simple. White tile, plants in the window, clean counter. A few photos hung on the wall. The boy, smiling with syrup all over his chin. Leah, holding a chicken with her sleeves rolled up. Daniel, holding a fishing rod with the kid asleep on his back. It wasn't flashy. It was real. Daniel placed a stack of papers on the kitchen table. Leah raised an eyebrow. Official. He nodded. Just got it this morning. She scanned a heading. Final civil closure, Rios versus Rios. Below it, all claims resolved. Repayment complete. No further proceedings. After all this time, she said softly. He nodded again. She's off the record. I'm off the leash. Feel different. Daniel thought for a moment. Feels like. I've landed. She walked over and kissed him gently on the cheek. You deserve to be here. The boy ran back in from outside, one shoe missing, dirt on his hands. Pancakes now. Daniel laughed. Pancakes now. Later that afternoon, after the dishes were done and the syrup was gone, Daniel sat on the back steps, boots untied, watching the clouds roll slow above the trees. A truck pulled up to the gate. Carlos got out. He was a little grayer than before, but still had grease under his nails and that same crooked grin. Daniel walked to greet him. They shook hands the way brothers do, brief, firm, full of memory. You didn't have to drive all the way out here, Daniel said. Carlos held up a small wooden box. Didn't want to ship it. Felt wrong. Daniel took the box. Opened it. Inside was the last of his old medals. A few trinkets. Dog tags. And a photo, him and Morales. Arms around each other. Grinning like fools. Whole. Carlos said, found them behind a cabinet I never moved. Daniel swallowed once, nodded. Thanks. Carlos pulled something else from his jacket pocket. A worn ribbon. Recognize it? Daniel smiled faintly. From the letters. Carlos handed it over. Didn't feel right keeping it. Thought you'd want it back. Daniel turned the ribbon in his hand. It felt softer than it used to. Time did that to things. You ever hear from her? Carlos asked quietly. Daniel shook his head. Last I heard, she left town. Kids are living with her sister. No one's posted her name in the forums since the judgment. Clean break, huh? As clean as it gets. They stood in silence a while. Carlos lit a cigarette, leaned against the truck. You seem good, he said. I am. Didn't think you'd ever let someone in again. Daniel looked toward the porch, where Leah was reading with the boy curled up next to her. I didn't let her in, he said. She stayed long enough for the walls to fall down. Carlos nodded, flicked ash off the edge. That's the best kind. They said goodbye without needing a speech. Carlos drove off. Daniel watched the dust trail fade behind the gate. That evening, Daniel walked to the edge of the property where the trees opened wide into golden hills. He knelt by a small stone marker, not a grave, but a memorial. Just a name carved into it. Morales, 1988 to 2018. Still here. Daniel placed the ribbon down gently. Then, from his jacket pocket, he pulled a sealed envelope. He set it next to the marker. Whispered, last one. He stood, exhaled slowly. And for the first time in years, maybe since before the deployment, before the lies, before the betrayal, he felt completely, finally, free. Where are you watching from now? Which country and city? Comment below and let us know where in the world this story found you. If this story moved you, made you feel something real, or reminded you of your own journey, like the video to help others find it too. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. This one's for all the people who gave everything and came home to nothing and still found a way forward. Want more stories like this? Subscribe for powerful, honest storytelling that doesn't flinch. We're just getting started.